This episode is brought to you by Pluto TV. Are you looking for your next case? Pluto TV has all your favorite crime dramas streaming for free, which means suspicion is free, with countless cases to crack. Watch CSI, Criminal Minds, NCIS, Blue Bloods, Tracker, FBI, and SWAT, all for free from all your favorite devices. Feel the free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
We
are
Cultivate.
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 We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Stengel.
Hello.
Well, hello there.
I missed you.
I missed you too. It's been a hot minute.
Oh, it has. Lindsay decided to go float away from me, both literally and figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
But now she's back, and everything's good, and now we can record.
So first and foremost, I did it again. I need
What did you
to
do?
apologize to Mariam. I keep saying she's from the Philippines. The girl is from Singapore. Like, they are not the same at all.
Oh, man.
And I keep doing it, and I did it in a recent episode from, I think, either the end of January or the beginning of February. I can't remember at this point. I am sorry.
Sorry, Miriam.
I am garbage. And geography is not my friend, apparently. So there is that. It's not really a cubby, but I'm just doing it at the top. Because that's what you do when you are thanking your Buy Me a Coffee sustainers. You thank them at the top, the first episode of the month, instead of the second episode of the month like I did in February because I forgot. So
You took a break, all right? You took a break in January. It's all good.
yeah.
I'm not judging you, and I am the only voice that currently matters in this very moment as we record, just the two of us.
Yeah.
So,
Just the two of us.
yeah.
So thank you to Charlie, Elizabeth, Sarah, and Cheryl for continuing to be monthly supporters of the podcast.
Thank you so much.
If you would like to be a supporter as well and support the hot mess that is going on right now.
It's a fun ride. You all have to admit it. It's just a roller coaster of emotions at any point.
It is. It's a glass case of emotion, and I should never drink milk on a hot day. So it's never the right choice.
Mm-mm.
But if you would like to join their ranks, you certainly can, and go to buymeacoffee.com/Ye Olde Crime Podcast. Or it's Ye Olde Crime. I can't even remember. That's why there's a link in the show notes, because my brain is not braining today, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It is March, so you know what that means.
Mock Madness.
Wicked Mock Madness. And if you are listening to our show for the first time, first of all, welcome to the chaos.
Yeah.
But secondly, if you're like, what does this mean? I'm going to tell you. Every March, we spend the entire month discussing cases of witchcraft and wizardry, I guess, and sorcery, and all that fun stuff. Thanks to our friend Mark, in honor of him.
He helped us buy our first pair of really nice mics when we asked for a donation at the time. So as a thank you for helping us have better audio quality, we continue every year to dedicate the entire month to the topic that he requested. So shout out to Mark.
Love you, Mark.
Hope you're still listening.
He is, because he messaged me a month or two ago, something like that.
Nice.
Was just checking in, which I thought was sweet.
Aww.
Anyway, now that I've spent several minutes talking and getting us all situated. Let's discuss the first case of the month, which is the Valais Witch Trials.
All right.
So information was pulled from the following sources. A 2023 All That's Interesting article by Kalina Fraga. A 2023 Cracked article by Amanda Mannon. 2023 Scholar Blogs post by Louisa Sobrera. A 2023 Wildhorn blog post. 2022 The Collector article by Lauren Nitschke. A 2022 Medium article by Natasha Lay, one of those. A 2017 History article by Bryn Holland. 2014 Esoterics article. An Academic Dictionaries and Encyclopedias article. My God. A Center of Excellence article. Luke Maston website article. Wikipedia. And Witchcraft and Witches article by, I'm pretty sure this is her pen name, Raven Pendergrass.
If not, her parents knew what they were doing.
They did.
They were like, you know what? We're going to make this kid cool.
You Googling, Coco.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much to Carrie Ann for her research assistance for this episode. And links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes. Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
So in the case of the Valais Witch Trials, they didn't start overnight.
Most don't, right?
Most don't. So in 1415, the people of Valais, who lived at the base of the Matterhorn in southeastern France and Switzerland, had begun a rebellion against the noble family of the area, who were known as the Raron, and the rebellion was known as the Affaire de Rarogny.
That'd be a fun name to like chant out.
It would.
As you're storming their house.
Rarogny, Rarogny, Rarogny.
They'd be confused and think that it was a good thing until they'd look outside.
And be like, oh, they're going to kill us. Okay, cool.
Oh, no!
No. The region had just been granted independence from the Duchy of Savoy the year before, but that power was then transferred over to the Raron. So you see how it's like...
freedom ain't free kind of a thing.
Yeah. And this decision threatened to split the Swiss Confederation. And the power of the Raron family was broken by 1419. So during the course of the Civil War, which ended 5 years after it began in 1420, the city-states of Uri, Schwyz, Unterwalden, Glaurus, Zug, de Lucerne, Zurich, and Bern consolidated, which was great, but also meant that your new neighbors were also potentially the same people you had been previously fighting against.
Oh. So some kind of tension still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things were a little tense. And add to that religious tension between the Catholic Church and the rise and persecution of Waldensians in Fribourg, which took place between 1399 and 1430, so like 10 years later, didn't help matters. And Waldensians were like the predecessors to what would become Swiss Protestants.
Got it. I was trying to I was like, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I was like, what is that? So yeah, Protestants and Catholics. Classic oil and water situation.
Really?
So.
Which is, I mean, you'd think with the parallels, they'd at least be civil, but history has shown no.
Nah.
Not in the early days, at least.
No, as it does. Throughout the
Hmm.
course of the war, rumors spread widely, and it wasn't long before these rumors began to take a turn to the supernatural.
I mean, fear is a powerful tool.
hmm Especially when you live in kind of like a mountainous, remote area.
That gets real dark and real
hmm
cold, real
hmm
harsh.
hmm So in
Yep.
August of 1428, 7 delegates assembled from 7 districts to investigate the claims of witchcraft and sorcery that were coming to light. And this sparked the start of the witch trials in Valais, Sweden, which would
Mhm.
go on to spread from the French speaking Lower Valais, which was ruled by the House of Savoy and Prince
Mhm.
Bishopric of Sion,
Mm.
to the German speaking Valais of Upper Valais in the Western Alps.
Yeah, those are two totally different groups of people right there.
So it kind of spread all along the whole length of the Western Alps. Fun fact, because I haven't done a fun fact in a while, many historians believe that the witch trials in Valais were the first to sweep through Europe, predating others of its ilk by 50 years.
Wow, so they were monsters from the start.
Yeah,
Not really something to brag about, my guys.
no,
Way to start the worst thing ever.
yep. A formal proclamation was issued on August 7th of 1428 in Loch, detailing how to conduct a witch trial and the requirements for the accusation and subsequent arrest of said witches.
Hmm.
And as we've noted in the past, it didn't take much for you to get arrested during the 15th century. Public slander was a common reason, but the accusations had to be backed up by at least 3 or more people to warrant an arrest.
I still don't like that.
Yep.
Because you could just have three dudes that were really upset with you lie, and then you're out.
Yep. Investigations into accusations weren't common practice for everyone.
What?
Right. They were strictly reserved for those of a higher class.
Shocking.
Additionally, even after the allegations were quote unquote confirmed, the
Mm-hmm.
arrest would be conducted in private in an effort to protect that family's reputation. So if you were of higher social status and by some roll of the dice, you were accused by 3 or more of your peers of being a witch,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be like, no, it can't be that person. So then they would
Mm-hmm.
investigate on the DL. And if they were like, yeah, it was them, then they'll be like, okay, we're going to pick them up at night so no one sees that we took them, so no one knows, and no one talks bad about their family.
Just like they do now.
hmm
Glad to see things didn't change, you know?
hmm
So great.
Conversely, investigations would be null and void only when the accusations came from 2 or more individuals who had themselves been condemned to death for acts of sorcery. So if I was condemned for being a witch
Mm-hmm.
and you were condemned for being a witch and
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to condemn somebody else for being a witch, our
We could do it.
testimony would be thrown out because we were already condemned.
Oh, well, that's kind of nice. So at least you can't be bitter on your way down, right?
Yes. I mean, you
Can't.
could, but it wouldn't work unless
It
the
wouldn't
other
matter.
accusations it wouldn't work unless the other accusations were coming from people that had not been accused of being a witch.
Got it.
But if 2 or more witches were like, "You're a witch," then yeah, it meant nothing. So speaking of accusations, they
Mm-hmm.
could be one or more of the following: flying via
Mm-hmm.
the use of chairs that were smeared with salve or ointment.
Interesting choice.
Greasy chairs, who knew?
Flying on a greasy chair.
It's my kind of Friday night. So witches were said to use these flying chairs to rob the wine cellars of their neighbors.
I love that so much. I want to do this now. This sounds fun. Like just sliding on a greased up chair into your neighbor's house to steal their wine. That sounds delightful.
See, and I'm picturing them flying, like, sitting upright in the chair, not, like, straddling it as if you had it, like, tipped over on its
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
side and you're riding it like a
Yeah, like you're
train.
riding it like a wheelchair
Yeah,
almost.
you're just sitting in
Like you
it,
were at the dinner table and it just moved.
like, steering it with an imaginary wheel to
Oh
its
my god, could you
destination,
imagine? They're just like
which they wouldn't have known to do that because they didn't have
no, they
cars.
could have like reins, like horse reins.
Yeah, an invisible horse
Yeah, there you
pulling
go.
their flying chair down into the wine cellar. I like
That's
it.
we cracked the code. That's what it
Yep.
was.
A second accusation would be if you met with Satan, who was
Mm,
said to reside in the wine cellars, where he would then teach the witches curses and more magic. And Satan was said to also appear as a black animal, most
mm.
commonly a bear or a ram.
It concerns me that there were enough people that saw black bears and rams for this to be a thing.
Yep.
Like, well, and wouldn't you want to not have a wine cellar in your home if Satan himself is just like chilling there? Like, if I was building a house, I'd be like, absolutely not, no cellar.
Well, not only that,
I
but it's
mean,
like how many people saw rams and or bears in their wine cellar to be like, I got a problem with Satan, y'all. Like,
right. There's a bear in my cellar. Like, how often is that happening, you guys? What's going
that's
on?
that's gonna be my new catchphrase.
There's a bear in the cellar.
There's a bear in my wine cellar.
You guys, this is just as bad. Our situation is just as bad as a bear in a cellar. Bear in a wine cellar.
Satan's come. All right,
A bear in a wine cellar with a greased up chair,
that slippery Satan.
which would be so catastrophic if you tried to put a black bear in a greased chair in a room full of breakable objects. I mean, at that point, it's on
It's
you.
like a bull
You
in a
know,
china shop, but it's a greased up black
it's a
bear
greased
in a
chair.
wine cellar.
And now he's drunk and full of glass.
Or a greasy black ram in a wine cellar. I suppose we shouldn't
Oh, that's
we, sh-
so
we
much
shouldn't throw away
worse.
the ram. So, in addition to teaching magic,
Mm,
Satan would request that his followers avoid confession and taking part in Holy Mass, as well as provide him with a tribute, which
mm,
would often be a sheep, a lamb, sometimes it was money, or another object of worth, which I would
hey,
argue you're already giving him wine, but what do I
right.
know?
Like, what if the wine's like super old and nice? They were in the right area for good wine.
They were in wine country, so I
They
don't
were
know.
in wine country. So to me, he's just being selfish, which checks out, you know?
He is Satan, so
So maybe it was
famously
real.
selfish.
I mean, it must have been real because, it does check out. He would have been selfish like that
Yeah.
in a wine cellar with a bear.
Another accusation would be conspiracy, specifically to renounce and turn against Christianity, which could get you arrested, as it was believed witches were attempting to usurp the religion's control over humanity.
And do what?
Hail Satan.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Like,
it's just,
God
it,
who? This is the year of the ram and the black bear.
come get your wine, bitches! As they ride the bear. Bunch of bears and rams in the sunset. You guys want to party?
I know a great place. We're going to go in the ground. Curses was another one,
Mhm.
specifically the curing of sickness and paralysis by transferring the affliction from the sick to a neighbor.
Oh my god, there'd be so many people. Heaven forbid a virus tears through a town.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because these types of curses
Yeah.
included
Yeah.
lameness, madness, blindness,
Mm.
impotence, miscarriage, and infertility. And it's interesting that you mentioned illness because this coincides with an outbreak of the Black Death that took place in both 1420, So during the Civil War and in
Mhm.
1428, both of which devastated the area.
That makes sense. And I like, as history has shown us, when you see that much death, you tend to freak out and
Hmm.
start to believe in just about anything. Now that we've gone through COVID, I can see how it happened better
Yeah.
than if I wouldn't have lived through something like that.
Yeah. Conspiracies just run rampant.
Yeah.
Another way you could find yourself arrested or accused of being a witch would be if you utilized a collection of herbs to make yourself invisible.
Hmm.
Or the herbs could help you shapeshift into a wolf in order to kill cattle.
I just see people like making like homemade ghillie suits, and then they get accused of being a witch. Just a bunch of weed, like leaves and shit in there.
You could be accused of being a witch for ruining crops of grain or wine, for bringing plowing teams to a stop, or causing a cow to dry up and give no milk. This is very important due to the occurrence of the Little Ice Age, which we've touched on in a
Yeah,
previous episode, that hit this area really hard between 1428 and 1429. And due to crop failures, the practice of grain cultivation had been replaced with cattle farming.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like, dang, this really was kind of the perfect storm for this to
Hmm.
happen.
Hmm.
That's really too bad.
And last, but certainly not least, committing acts of cannibalism after abducting children for the sole purpose of eating them could and would land you in prison,
I mean, I would hope so in general.
as a
The
general rule. Yeah.
yeah.
But in this
And
case, you would be a witch.
if you want to call that person a witch to put him to death for eating children, by all means.
Hmm.
Sure, I'm cool with that one. I'm cool with
Yeah.
that one.
The trials themselves were far less documented than others we've covered on the show, with just a few records by local court clerk Johannes Frun of Lucerne surviving to this day. No one wrote anything down. The records that survived are his recollections from attending the trials.
Yeah.
And these records were written in 1430, and many believe it was at the request of Christoph von Zillingen, who at the time was the governor of the castle in Sierre, which was in the area. Starting in Val d'Anniversaire and Val de Herons, over the course of the first year and a half of the trials, over 100 victims would lose their lives.
Wow. And you have to think too at that point, so many people would have already died just
Hmm.
from starvation, cold, illness, a multitude of things. So you're just eradicating everybody.
Hmm.
So sad.
The bulk of them, of those executed, were burnt at the stake, while a select
Mm.
few would be beheaded instead if they confessed.
Ah.
Uh, Now, if you found yourself condemned to die at the stake, you would be tied to a ladder and have a wooden crucifix placed in your arms and a bag of gunpowder hung about your neck.
Oh, shit.
The ladder would then be tipped backwards into the flames so that you would go in headfirst, with the belief being that they died quicker with the aid of gunpowder.
Oh, I hope so. I hope, with all hope, that it was fast and instantaneous.
This method with the gunpowder in a bag around the neck is very reminiscent of the trials of the men who it's believed were the three blind mice behind the three blind mice nursery rhyme. Remember,
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
all
yeah.
they all had bags of gunpowder around their necks, and one of them it didn't light.
Horrific.
Those who didn't confess would be tortured until a confession was made or until they died from the torture itself. But either way, your body would be burnt regardless.
So if nature wasn't going to murder you, your neighbors would.
If they thought you were a witch, yes. If enough people thought you were a witch, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think at that point, everybody would think everybody's a witch.
hmm
Whew.
So the property and belongings of the victims would be returned to their families if they swore that they were unaware of the acts of sorcery.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that any of their stuff actually really got back to them, unless they were
Yeah.
highfalutin.
If for whatever reason the family was either unable to receive the property or they couldn't say, oh, yeah, my family member wasn't a witch,
Mhm.
it would then be turned over to the nobility, which I
Oh,
think is
convenient.
very inconvenient.
Mm.
The trials themselves spread north to Valais, then
Mhm.
across the French and Swiss Alps from Saint Bernard in Savoy to Briançon in Dauphin, then to the valleys of Durance, Argentière, Freycinet-Mira, and Valputa. Their spread is tied to the Council of Basel, who played a pivotal role in sharing the narrative of the nature of the trials. So this council, which existed from 1431 to 1437, was made up of theologians who gathered the court proceedings from
Mhm.
Valais, Vaux, and Savoy in order to discuss the evidence. So these were kind of like
A jury almost.
a little
Like
bit,
a
kind
like
of,
a like a mixture of an expert witness and a jury,
yeah, like they would go
because
around
they would be the
collecting.
content experts.
Yes. The witch trials of Valais ended 8 years after they started.
That's such a long time.
Many accounts list them running until 1447, which would be over double that at 19 years.
That's so insane. Those how why would you stay there? Why would you live there? That I
hmm
mean, God, you would be in fear all the time.
hmm Throughout the course of the trials, over 367 men, women, and children would lose their lives, the majority of which were members of the peasant class and surprisingly male. So only a third of those that
Really?
were accused were women.
Do you think it was because maybe the men survived better in that area? Because I
I don't
mean,
know.
assuming the conditions were the way they were, it meant like women and children are kind of the first to go when you think of like food scarcity and illness.
Maybe.
Or they're just a bunch of bitter dudes that used to that families played war and
Yeah, I don't know, because very few of them were described as well educated as well, and only a few names of victims are actually known, and I couldn't find any of them anywhere.
that's sad. But it makes sense if it's just a recollection from a guy. He's not going to remember their names.
Yeah. The documents compiled by the Council of Basel would go on to be studied by many authors who would publish works on witchcraft, such as Johannes Nier, who would write Formicarius in 1436, which is a pretty well-known book on witchcraft.
Okay.
The European witch trials themselves, so not just in Valais, but like
Mhm.
all of Europe, wouldn't end until 1782.
That's insane to me. That's that's way too close to like formal Victorian anything.
That was the year that the last accused witch, a maid from Glarose named Anna Goelgi, was beheaded. So after enduring torture, Anna confessed to speaking to the devil and poisoning the daughter of the rich married politician that she had been working for. It is suspected was the politician who it's believed had sexually assaulted Anna, then denounced her in an effort to protect himself and his image.
Cute.
He claimed that she killed his daughter by feeding her pins.
Wow. So he was a great man, that guy.
Mhm.
Real top-notch individual.
And that is the Valais Witch Trials of Sweden. Believed to be the first official witch trials in all of Europe.
Wow. How devastating for that poor community. Like in general, like not ignoring the witch trials altogether, just the sheer amount of devastation and suffering that they went through with like war and famine and an ice age that they couldn't understand. I mean, yeah.
Starvation.
If I lived there, I would think that you could probably convince me to believe in just about anything if you experience that day after day, year after year. Wow, that's so sad. Way to go, Lindsay.
Sorry. You knew what you were getting into.
I know.
It's witch month. They're never
It's
happy. We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Yield Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
This week's podcast plug is the mystery frequency. Turn your dial to find the frequency of the past, where the classic stories of suspense, sci-fi, thrillers, and mysteries are found waiting to be heard once again. There's more to old-time radio than just detectives, and you'll find a variety of those stories here in their original form, where each episode takes you to another place or time, but only when you find the mystery frequency. They are part of the Darkcast Network, and we'll have a link to their show in the show notes.
That sounds so fun.
And this week's question comes from Carrie Ann, and she would like to know, if I locked you in a room with your worst fears for a week, how would you keep sane?
I don't think I would. I'm gonna be real right now. It's fragile here. It's a fragile mental state currently, just in general. So I think it would only be a couple of hours before I'd be like, you know what? I had a good run. I had a great run. It's been real. Thanks for all the fish. I'm out. And I'd just let my fears straight up murder me, I think, at that point. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would not do well. I just wouldn't.
I'm just trying to think of what the fears would be.
Exactly. Like, I can't really.
So for me, it would be dolls and
God.
heights.
Just like a really scary dollhouse.
Baba Yaga, I guess. I don't know. Or you're like trapped somewhere
Trapped at
high
that
up
lake.
with a bunch of dolls that you can't escape from.
Absolutely not.
No thanks.
Mm-mm.
I'd probably just yeet myself off of whatever high thing I'm on and just be like, goodbye.
This is all your fault.
I regret nothing.
You'll never get me alive.
You won't.
You wouldn't.
Because I will fall to my death.
That's true. You would.
We love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Ye Olde Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
Well, on that note, what's something good you'd like to share?
My partner's coming home from almost 3 weeks of being gone, training for his new job, and we're going to have a lovely new addition to our family. Thanks to his new job, he's bringing home a new baby. She's a sweet little yellow lab that's going to do some security work. So I'm excited to meet her. I have our house all ready with pheromone stuff so that hopefully the boys won't lose their minds too much with her. I am very, very, very ready to see my partner
I bet.
and hug him, tell him I love him, that kind of thing. That's my good thing, is I get to do that soon. How about you?
Yes. My good thing is that I'm glad that I am home from my vacation. Not that it wasn't, like, it was good. I struggled the first day just because I've never been on a cruise before. It's a lot of people. It was very loud. It
It'd be
was a
a lot of
lot.
it'd just be a lot of new things.
It was a lot of
So-
new things. I had to lay down the law right away with the girls because they wanted to just run off and do all the things. And it's like, you can't do that on a boat that has 18 floors and like 5,000 people on it that are just
Yeah.
passengers, not accounting for the 2,000 people that work on the ship. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of people and a lot of places where you can get lost. And fun fact, if you don't pay for the Wi-Fi, you have no real good way to get in touch with people on the ship. So I was like, bear all that information in mind and stay with us or stay where you tell us you are going so we know where to find you. Thanks. After I
Makes
had that
sense.
initial freak out, it ended up being better.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, it's just like letting your kids loose at the Mall of America times
Yeah.
a million.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. The police, they'll arrest you. You can't do that
Yeah.
there. There's a reason.
There's a reason for that. It was very interesting. I ate a lot of food, a lot of variety of foods. We went to 3 islands in the Bahamas, and we went snorkeling in one of them,
Mhm.
and we did an open air tram ride around one of them. The other one, we didn't do an excursion. We just kind of walked around, which was fine because it
Mhm.
was very, very hot. And so we were like, okay, I think we've seen it. And then we went back on the boat.
That's awesome.
It was good. It was definitely a learning experience. If we do it again, I feel like I'll be a little bit more prepared next time, knowing what I know now.
That makes sense. I mean, you can only prepare so much with something you've never experienced before.
And you're not necessarily going to know what
What you
things you should be bringing to make life
Yeah.
easier. Like people will say, "Oh, make sure you pack X, Y, and Z," but
Mhm.
they don't tell you about 1, 2, 3, and 4 that will actually make your life
Mhm.
that much more easier if you bring those things too, if you have children. But we did it. We're back. I have never been so glad to sleep on my bed as I was the night that we got back. I missed my Kona girl, so it was nice seeing her again and picking her up the day
Yeah.
after we got back.
Little baby.
So, yeah, it's just been getting back to normal. That's what it's been. All right, shall we?
Let's do it.
If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, Castbox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Madison.
and we'll see you next time with another tale
As old as crime.